All right, guys. So my name is Afiq from DESA. I'm a freelance consultant for Muslim businesses who are looking to do pop-up spaces in 4 to 8 weeks' time. So we had DESA ran over for 2 weeks, and I'm gonna do a quick case study on one of our vendors, YourMajesty NTD. So they sell Muslimah wear and custom hijabs, shawls, and everything, perfumes as well. Just to give a quick run through. So there are three things that I will be doing with this series. There are basically three things that I will do with this series, for this case study series for our vendors. So we will go over certain things and look over their marketing, look over their sales, and lastly, I would just go over what I would suggest and what I would actually do instead. Okay. So there are two main points that I want to mention for YourMajesty NTD. So the first one being that they are relatively new. So they have, I think, less than 200 followers in general. Yeah, around there. So they're quite a lot more populated in their TikTok channel, and it grew recently after DESA to about nearly 38 to 40-ish followers. Because when I first saw their platform, it was about 78. Right now, I think they're approaching 120, or maybe they've already reached 120. All right, so that's just a bit more context. So the marketing, the social media platforms, they are a relatively new business. So I wouldn't really expect a lot of turn-ups for the customers. That's one thing. However, what we can do, or rather look into, is actually these two factors of marketing and branding. We're going to go over real quick, right? So the first one would actually be marketing. So for marketing, what they're doing is they're already doing in Instagram and TikTok, okay? Which are good, but TikTok is where majority of the portfolio growth is happening. Profile growth is happening. So we would really want to do double down on this content. But the thing is, for between these two platforms, is that there's actually the interlap. And the interlap comes in the form of video content that they can actually do. Not only that, on top of the video content that they can do, there's another primary mode of sales that they're doing, which are the live sales. So they do live sales a lot more frequently on TikTok, and I feel that that is basically an uncharted territory for Instagram as well. But most likely it's because TikTok just has it's just a better platform for newer traffic to go into and to conduct the live sessions, right? So those are the marketing aspect. One thing is that, okay, they have less than 200 followers, but does this mean that they can't really bring at least a small percentage of them over for their booths regardless? So I think a good basics to really go into is about 10%. So what we are looking at is about 20 customers or 20 followers from the follower base to really just say, like, to really pop by and just visit the booths, right? So to achieve that, usually it really comes back down to branding, and branding is something that I'm so heavily emphasizing upon, because branding is a make or break for your business, especially when you're starting out. If you have a good branding, it really just means that you have a good position to persuade your customers, to persuade your followers to take a certain action. Not only that, when you have a good branding, you can have a higher monthly retention of your customers. That's one thing, because you're so good and your marketing is so well. So despite the fact that you have less than 200 followers, it really will do best in your favor to build up the credibility. So this really ties back down to credibility. Yeah, right. So this really comes back down to your branding, right? So credibility really ties back down to your branding. And one thing about branding is that it's often mistaken for marketing. That's the thing. Branding is actually just the catalyst to everything else that would really do well for you. So think about it this way. You may have good marketing, you may have good sales, but if your branding isn't good, then you're pretty much flatlining the whole time. I feel that when your branding is so good, even though your marketing is quite little or your sales is quite little, it would actually be an exponential effect, right? When you have so good of a credibility, be it as a vendor in terms of customer support or in terms of the product quality, your trajectory actually changes. That's one thing. Okay. So what I would do for marketing is, all right, look, you got TikTok and you got IG. So for these two platforms, cross over these two platforms, which they are already doing, which is good. However, what I'm saying is to also open up another avenue for sales, which is through their lives. Okay. So what I would do is go through their live stage. All right. Okay. So with the live stations being cross-platform, it builds up a lot more avenues for traffic to flow into. Not only that, it will create a much, not stronger, but spreads out your presence throughout. Okay. So with these two, what I like to call the digital omnipresence thread, I would say like, okay, expand on these two platforms, do your sales and marketing on these two platforms, and wait for the growth to actually happen. However, the thing that would actually make the growth a lot more bigger and faster would actually be credibility. And credibility is oftentimes tied back down to branding, like I said earlier. So what I would do for their branding would actually just be to do more booths. Why? So the question really comes back down to like, why do you have to do more booths? You know, what are the significance of it? Why? Because there's increased expenses. Then there's also the risk, right? There's the risk of not buying anything. You'll just be in a net negative. So the thing about booths is that you have to look beyond just the sales aspect. You have to look beyond just the expenses and profits that you would actually be making. The way I like to see booths is that when you have a physical booth setup, most likely that's easily an instant credibility boost, because it tells your customers like, hey, you know, that they actually are setting up shop. As simple as that, they're setting up shop. So that means they are quite good. They're staying true to their words. They are willing to go through beyond for their business. They are a lot more credible. Not only that, when you set up booths as well, you are also increasing the content output. And this ties in with credibility. So when I say increasing content output, what I'm talking about is on your own social media platforms, what you can do is like features. You know, that's for example, like, hey, you know, I'm at Causeway Point, I'm going to do a booth over here, this is what I'll be selling, yada, 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 and that's it. And not only that, that's just one of the features. Not only that, you can also do a lot more in a value-packed kind of setting in terms of the marketing that you want to do, in terms of the content that you want to do. Why? Because you are located in a public space to do something, to do your business, right? So there's a few things that I would say that still stands true, in my opinion, when it comes to running booths and making sure that all of these factors really do play a part in improving your business after the pop-up as well, which is time. Time is a mega factor in this. And ideally, I would say like you need a 4-week runway to really run things through. You know, you have to gather up your content maybe at least once every week, but do a high value content once per week to really get the momentum going for the pop-up itself. So once you have the momentum built up, once you have the value built up, once you have the expectations and nurturing built up, most likely, inshallah, really something would be a lot more beneficial for you always down the road. Okay, and 4 weeks is actually sufficient time to cycle through a lot of content, a lot of activities that ties into both TikTok and IG. So fundamentally, you are not doing anything different. The only thing different that you'll be doing is that you have a deadline, which is actually the pop-up space. However, with the pop-up space, there's a few risks that comes associated with it. And the first one will be the increased expenses. Why? Because you are a home-based business, and expenses is something that you would best keep tight eye on, right? Rather keep it very, very low. You are a home-based business, so you have to understand that, right? However, there is also the risk of not conducting any sales to the public traffic. And that's another thing altogether, but that really depends on your capabilities as a vendor, okay? One more thing that or rather, instead of looking at all of these factors, there's one primary factor that every small businesses should always look into whenever they set up booths, is actually to increase your credibility. This is the primary thing. The moment you increase your credibility, trust me, based on experience, a lot of things could happen. And it literally just becomes a catalyst for exponential growth in your marketing aspect, in your sales aspect as well. Not only that, in your branding aspect as well, because it's a snowball effect. Okay? So what I would do, if I were to really wipe this off, put it in bullet points, simply put for you, would be, okay? First one. First, use the omnipresence strat. So this would be IG and TikTok. Do the same activities for these two platforms. And if you want to go a bit beyond, what I would say is also go into Facebook. This is just a mass market. But the reason why I say Facebook is because there's the interest group, relevant interest group, which you can grow your branding in, not only to fellow competitors, but also to just the general vendor groups if you're looking to expedite on it. And we could really go a lot deeper with this, but just on the baseline level, omnipresent strategy, doing the same activities in terms of content and sales for Instagram and TikTok, okay? That's the first thing. Secondly is to view booths more than just making money. So when you view booths more than just making money, you are really trying to farm as much of the booth setup itself. And some term that I would like to say is just milking the living crap out of it. You milk the venue, you milk the environment that you're in, and once you milk as much as possible in terms of the content, do the same thing over here. But make sure the content is so good, high quality, and really something that really sticks well to your customers, because those are the things that will really push you forward. And trust me, you already have seen this, by which when you just reposted the story for your pop-up booth and seeing like people are actually moving about and stuff, that video got the highest views in record time. Not only that, the snowball effect, or rather the momentum, actually carried on for the next few videos. And now you're building on top of it. So now what you really want to do is really take advantage of the momentum that you've built up. So omnipresent strat, do the same for Instagram and TikTok, and farm the momentum. Don't lose it. So once you lose the momentum, that's when your sales and marketing will actually drop. We will actually dip. So keep the momentum and really just keep it steady. Okay, that's what I would do.